Celebrating 50 years of noteworthy excellence, since 1958, Hall Piano Company has proudly served families and businesses across our state, from uprights to grands, sales and repairs to moving. Call today and you'll see just how beautifully a piano fits into the life of your family. View our inventory online or come see and play our tremendous selection of upright and grand pianos. From beginner to concert pianist, we're here for you. Celebrating 50 years, Hall Piano Company.
Introduce Mr. David Higginson and his professional piano system. Mr. Higginson has been teaching piano for over 25 years. With his experience, he has developed a system to teach people how to play piano like the way professionals play without actually having to be a professional. His toured all around the world and brought his system to people all over the country, and brought it to people who have been frustrated with traditional piano lesson formats that want to be able to play beautiful music without having to spend years learning how to do that. So I introduce Mr. David Higginson.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank the folks here at Hall Piano for having me come. We've actually been trying for quite a while, right, Steve? I met Steve in Chicago. Was that 4 years ago, or what was that? 3 years ago. And he decided that he wanted to have me come and do these seminars. And so we tried to figure out a way. And of course, my schedule and his schedule didn't quite work, but you just made it work anyway this time. So we're glad to be here. We're going to have this be an informal seminar, which means what? It means ask questions when they pop into your mind. Because everybody's probably going to learn more if you ask a question than if we just have them in our mind, right? How many of you had piano lessons at some point in your life? Okay, lots. How many no piano lessons? Let's see the hands of those. Quite a few, about 10. I had 10 years of piano lessons and didn't enjoy it at all. Pretty weird, huh? So I became a piano teacher so I could punish other people. Boy, I forgot one category. How many of you had piano lessons but nobody would be able to tell? Okay. There's more in that category than we would like to think, isn't that right? So you'd be surprised how many people have a piano, had piano lessons. Somebody walks in your home, oh, beautiful piano, do you play? Not really. Not really. Not really playing. Or I play for my own enjoyment. Have you ever said that or heard that said? You know what that means, don't you? That means I hope nobody ever hears me play. That's you. Well, why didn't I like piano lessons? I loved playing the piano. How's that for weird? Sounds like a crazy guy. Loved to play the piano, hated learning how. Can you relate to that? Practice. I didn't like how long it took to learn how to play stuff. I just want to be able to do it instantly, you know. And isn't that, you know, is there anything crazy about just wanting to be able to do it without learning how? You know, the wanting part, the problem is that we usually don't get to do that. It may surprise you folks that of all the people who have started piano lessons, of all the people who've started piano lessons, 90% of them, if I hit this button right, click, this will work, 90% get frustrated and quit and end up not playing the piano as adults. By the way, what is the best time of life to be able to play the piano? It's a three-letter word starting with N-O and the last letter is W. Now is the best time. Not then, not someday, now. And I'm here to say, and I think many of you would agree with me, that if you can play the piano and it's truly just fun and enjoyable, it's one of the most priceless things you can ever do, isn't it? How many of you kind of stuck with it? You weren't one of the 90%, and you to this day actually play the piano pretty well and enjoy it. Let's see a show of hands. It's wonderful. Do you guys all agree that it's pretty well priceless? Yes? Absolutely. But I don't like that. I don't want you to think that I don't think that traditional piano lessons aren't any good. I think it's wonderful. But I don't like that. How many of you guys would go to a doctor if 90% of his patients died? Could you refer me to who is this doctor? I'd like to get in line for that. No, that's not a good success rate. Who would you guys blame? The piano teachers, the parents, the students, the neighbors, the dogs in the alley? Who would you blame? That's a trick question. Nobody's to blame. Because learning how to play the piano is difficult. Oh, so that's it. Yeah, that's the reason. But nobody ever says that. Learning how to play the piano is really hard. It's really complex. Look at this. How long would you have to look at that before you think you could just rattle it off without practice? Forever. It's complex, isn't it? And for me, I didn't like reading the music because to me, reading the music almost seemed to be getting in the way. You know what I mean? Because I just wanted to play. I didn't want to have to count up how many little ladder things there were to figure out what the note was. I just wanted to play it. And they have all these sharps and flats, and look at all these Italian words, dolce and senza and in quite a retard. I thought they were talking about me. That one. So I just kind of avoided playing, reading the music. Come on in, folks. Don't be shy, because we saved your seats. You guys need 2 seats together? Okay, does anybody have 2 seats? This gentleman right here is going to sacrifice so that you can be together on the front row, and you can just pass notes back and forth to each other. Only if they're short. They're going to slink down in their chairs. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, anyway, that's the situation. You see, it's complex. And not only do they tell you all these notes to play, look, they tell you what finger to use to play. And how long is that going to take? You're playing along, oh, they wanted 4th finger. What was I thinking? So we kind of get discouraged with that. And it takes a long time to learn how to play the piano the traditional way and sound really good, doesn't it? So most people get discouraged and frustrated. And the reason they're frustrated is because it's taking way longer than you thought it would. And anything where you can't see progress ends up being discouraging. Am I right? That's it. Well, a lot of you guys, of course, still want to learn how to play the piano. And I was kind of like you guys. I really liked playing it. But every once in a while I would see somebody who could sit down and play kind of like it was no effort. Have you seen those kind before? And I've seen people who could play any song you named. That's irritating, isn't it? And they don't even work at it. And they kind of look around the room when they're playing and you think, boy, they must have some special gift. You know what I mean? And I didn't have that gift. And I thought, well, why is it that my piano teachers tell me I'm talented, but I can't do what those guys can do? And that's what I really would like to do, is what they're doing. So I was discouraged all those years. Well, I didn't realize it, folks, but we're going to tell you something today that after all those years of playing the piano that I was looking for, I finally found it out. Anyway, guys who publish music are trying to figure out a way to make learning how to play the piano easier by making the music real simple, which sounds pretty good at first, except for one small problem. People don't really want to play simple music. Nobody's ever come up to me and said, my goal someday is to sound like a beginner. I just really would love to. Has anybody ever said that to you? No. When people say, I would dream that someday I could, what do they say? I'd like to play like, and they'll usually name some really good piano player. They don't want to sound like a beginner. Here's what we really all want. What we really want is an easier way to play beautiful music. That's what we want. So, I have a good idea. Are you all by yourself here today? Would you and that lady trade places so that that lady doesn't have to see quite as through your head? Well, thank you.
Over here,
So you're saying I'm an airhead?
No, yes. That's fine. That's fine. No, that's fine. That's fine. This guy here, he's a tall guy
No, it's
himself.
all right, I'll cut you there.
She's okay anyway. She likes bobbing and weaving. Appreciate that. Well, you can see most everything because it's not all below like that. We really would like an easier way to play beautiful music, right? You guys want to play beautiful music? Absolutely. We just want an easier way. That's what I was looking for all those years. Well, here's how well we'd all like to play. We don't want to just get by. We don't want to play for our own enjoyment. We don't want to play in such a way to where nobody wants to hear us, but we enjoy it because at least I think that one song we've learned is recognizable. That's not how we want to play. We want to play well enough to where people will say stuff like this. Well, that's beautiful. I wish I could play like that. And the ultimate compliment would play another song. That's how we want to play. And in order to play that well and not get discouraged and quit, we would need the ideal adult piano course. Now, the name of my seminar is called Piano the Way You Always Wished It Could Be. When I was growing up, if somebody would have said, what do you really wish it was like? Here's what I would have said. Well, I want it to sound good, but I want it to be easy to learn. That would have been my 2 wishes. And maybe that would correspond with your 2 wishes. Am I right? I think so. Well, I'm here to tell you today, folks, there actually is an easier way to play the piano and still sound good. happens to be the way professionals we hear on radio and television are playing the piano. The people who can just sit down and play like there's nothing to it are doing it a different way, and I didn't know all these years. I just thought they were geniuses and wondered why I wasn't one. But they're doing it an easier way because they're using patterns. I was not learning patterns, I was learning songs. And I was having to read all those little dots on the music and all of the different lengths and fingerings, and they're learning groups of notes. That's what a pattern is, a group of notes, and we call a group of notes in the piano what? A chord. It's a fancy name for it, group of notes. And I didn't know anything about that. My teachers never told me anything about that. And here we have patterns. Now the reason why this is such a huge difference than traditional piano, folks, is because a pattern is something you can do over and over. Anything you do over and over will eventually become easy and automatic. Think about it. Now some of you might be thinking, I don't think so. I don't think so. Yes, sir, if you do it over and over, eventually it'll become easy and automatic. And I can kind of prove it. How many people in here can type faster than 60 words a minute? Let's see the show of hands. Let's ask all of our typists a question. When you guys type, do you have to think about it? Do you have to think about where the keys are when you type? Do you have to think about which finger? Who over here types pretty fast? Do you have to think about which finger is going to hit which letter? Do you have to think about individual letters? This is amazing. Would you all typists agree that it has become pretty well easy and automatic? Am I right?
Actually, you can't find it on the keyboard. When you're looking for a specific
That's
letter,
right.
you can't find it.
Boy, does that ever stop you up, am I right? But if you don't look and you don't think, it just happens automatically. You are so right.
Yeah.
Why? Because you did it over and over. You mean there's no miracle here? You mean these people aren't geniuses? Well, yeah, they're geniuses. No, that's not how they do it. They do it because they did it over and over. And that's all. There's no secret. That is the secret, if you want to use a term, that you could learn how to play like the professionals. If somebody showed you the patterns and you did them over and over. Well, there's two kinds of patterns, chord patterns and rhythm patterns. Chord patterns just simply means where do you put your fingers? Where do you put your fingers for the group who know, like a G, you know, so I'm going to play a G chord. Oh, I didn't have to do any thinking at all. I just put my little finger on the G and played a pattern I'm so used to, I truly can do it without thinking. I don't have to think of any of those notes. I don't even have to look at the piano. I think that's rather amazing. I don't think I'm amazing. It's amazing that I've done this so often that I don't even have to look at the piano. So that's called a chord pattern. Now how about this rhythm pattern thing? Well, with only the chord and no rhythm, not too exciting, is it? You play that for your friends and say, how do you like it so far? And as soon as you add a rhythm pattern, you have the makings of a song, don't you? This is what the professionals know. They asked me how I knew my true love was true. I was a little worried about the high note. I was hoping this lady would jump up and take over for me. Okay. Well, there you have it. What's amazing is not this. What's amazing is I had 10 years of piano lessons and was majoring in music and had never heard of this. That's what's amazing. Because this has been going on forever and ever. You guys all know of people who play the piano like that. Matter of fact, I bet some of you have been in maybe a hotel lobby, big chandelier on the ceiling, grand piano over in the corner, somebody's sitting there without any music, of course, without paying any attention. Right? Oh, I'd love to play like that. But then you think, oh, it took me 2 years to sound like this. Does that bring back memories? So what do we do to get discouraged? We're excited for 10 seconds, discouraged for 20 years. Because we see these people play and we think, oh, I'd love to play like that. But then we say, oh, who am I kidding? They must have some mystical gift. And I apparently don't have that gift. Well, untrue. This is how they're playing, and we need to learn how to do it so that you guys can just have fun, fun, fun. Even if you've played piano 20, 30 years, you'd love adding this wonderful dimension of being able to sit down and play without having to read the music and still sound good. Well, how did I learn this? I was a freshman in college, and somebody from the music department came up to me one day and said, hey, there's a professional singing group coming to the college to perform, only they need a piano player. Are you interested? I said, well, yeah. See, when you're an 18-year-old guy, you say yes, and then later on you say, I should have read it. Am I right? I should have already thought that through. So I said yes. I said, who are they? They said, the Letterman. How many of you folks have heard of them? Some of you younger people need to ask your grandparents. And they said, so you'd like to play? I said, yes. I didn't even ask how much they're going to pay. Who cares? So they said, good, the concert's this Friday. Starts at 7 o'clock. You'll need to be there at 5 o'clock. Any red flags? Tons of red flags. But when you're an 8-year-old guy, you're colorblind to red flags. So I just said, hey, that'll be great. So I showed up at 5 o'clock, never having seen the music. Had me on the piano, somebody else on the drums, the bass, and the saxophone. Back in the olden days, this is for some of we old people, when the band didn't have to have electricity. Anyway, a little side note there. So they gave me my stack of music. By the way, the 4 of us had never played together before. Ever. They gave us our stack of music, they gave me my stack of music. I opened to the first song, still very naive and very excited, and looked at the music. And that's what it looked like. So what seems to be missing? Didn't you guys think that notes were kind of part of music? 10 years of piano lessons, never learned a single song that my teachers taught me that didn't have notes. They never ever said, well, just put your fingers there and play. No, they never did that. So here's the song, there's the notes, figure them out. Well, anyway, I was a little bit worried because, you see, all of a sudden I was in over my head. But you know what I realized? I realized, without anybody telling me, that they had put this stack of music in front of a lot of professionals before I ever saw it, and they would have liked it. As a matter of fact, they would rather look at that and play than see the music. Do you think so? You know why? They already know all these patterns. They don't need the music. They don't have to have somebody tell them how to play a G chord. And if the music were all written out, they would have to, it's the people, practice. But you see, there wasn't time to practice because it was 5 o'clock and we were going to perform at 7. So how many times are we going to be able to play each song? One time. Isn't that exciting? In a way, it's kind of fun. You folks, we saved you guys a chair. There's one in that row, one in this row, one there. There's actually 2 there, but feel free to just come on in. Take your time. But there's plenty up here, one up here. We're in good shape. One back there. And don't worry about it. And don't be embarrassed just because everybody's watching you as you walk across in front of them. Really. That was magic. Thank you. So anyway, I was worried, they were worried. Now, it isn't because I couldn't play anything, because I could play a G chord. How many of you guys could play a G chord? Let's see? But the problem is there's more than one way to play a G chord. What do you think they would have thought of this? Okay, guys, let's do it. 1, 2, ready, go. Does that sound pretty impressive to you guys? How are you controlling your lack of applause on that? Yes! Pretty empty, wouldn't you agree? That's a G chord. Well, they sent their agent out of the room. He came back a half hour later, walked right up in front, and said, I phoned all the musicians' unions and all the music stores within 50 miles. And I couldn't get anybody else to play the piano. He was pretty discouraged. Have you ever been to a professional concert and heard mistakes? Not really. And you can imagine they're not going to get up in front of this concert, before the concert. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a little problem tonight. Our piano player isn't any good. But other than that, I hope you enjoy yourself, and it's really great for us to be here. Just try to ignore the guy over here. So you don't expect that. Well, they had kind of struck out finding somebody else, but one of them gave me a supportive statement. He motioned over to me and he said, it's okay, he's starting to get it. So that made me feel a little bit better. We finished our rehearsal. I don't think it was true, I just think it was a nice thing to say. So we finished our rehearsal, playing each song once. Did the concert. I got lost in the middle of one song. The singer closest to me turned and went, which I took to mean, quit playing. Can you imagine how embarrassed? See, I was not just in front of my friends, I was in front of 3,000 people watching me quit playing in the middle of a song. Maybe I should have taken out a newspaper or something. Well, let's see what's on the sports page. Well, it was embarrassing and stuff, but when I finished that night, what do you think my experience was? What was my reaction to that experience? What do you guys think? I had planned on bragging to my friends that I played for the Letterman, but at the end of that night, how do you think I felt? Pretty humbled. But one important thing, instead of saying never again, my attitude was, yes! So that's how they do it. So a professional can play beautifully without even having to read music because they know how to do these little symbols and chords. And number 2, because they know all these patterns, professionals really don't need to practice. Now, do you think that appealed to me? I'd spent 10 years wishing I could do that. So I knew there was a way that you could learn how to do it. And I naively went to my local music store and said, do you have any books that teach chords? They said, oh yeah, that whole wall full over there. And here's an example of one. So I picked up the book pretty excited because I knew how easy it would be to just learn how to put my fingers in one place and get used to it, right? So I started looking through the book, and I was pretty excited. I mean, it showed me a piano, so I knew how to write book. 2 hands, so in case, you know, I'm not sure what a hand is. And I started looking through it, and I got a little discouraged. You know, row, row, row your boat. Sam, can you see why that's a little discouraging? I kept looking through it, surprised, and didn't find any chords. I thought, what is this? Here we are, almost halfway through the book, no chords. I looked on the front. Oh, maybe it doesn't actually teach chords, it just approaches it. Okay. That's actually not my joke. A lady in one of my seminars said that. She was looking off the front of the book. It wasn't until I got halfway through the book I found the first song with chords. Now, it isn't that you can't buy music with chords. Can you buy music with chords? Tons of it, tons of it. For instance, look at this. There's a song got chords. Look at those. F, D minor, G minor 7, C7, F, D minor, G minor, G minor. There's chords written on tons of music. Thousands of pieces of music. Absolutely monstrous amounts of music. But here's the song I found in the middle of this book to teach me professional chords right there. Some of you can read music, and so you know how impressive this is. Not to mention how exciting it sounds. Listen to this. Now, mind you, I'd had 10 years of piano lessons by now, and I was wanting to learn professional chords. Here's the exciting part. I bet I've offended some of you. I'll bet some of you actually play that way. How many have I offended? I'm really not trying to say how stupid can you be to play that way. That's, if I were 6 years old, that's not bad, is it? But if you're a little older than 6, it starts getting, isn't the truth we'd all like to get beyond that? Isn't that the truth? The problem is if you learn how to play using those 3-note chords, can you see the little 3 circles on the bottom? If you learn to play that way, you never get past it. You never graduate. You're always sounding like, how does that sound? Kind of like what? Do it what?
Like my brains.
Well, yeah, it's like a young person or a beginner, am I right? Is it a little boring, kind of? You'll never graduate. That's what's sad. And yet that's the 2 options you've had up until now. Either take years and years and years and learn how to play the traditional way, which is wonderful, or do it the quick way and sound kind of like a beginner. And those are not good choices for most people. Most people that don't want to really dive in and learn how to do it the traditional way, they still want to sound good. Well, I just kept looking because I know this isn't any good, and the reason why it sounds so amateur is just because those 3-note chords, you know, 3-note little pile, a little clump. I came across this chart, and I thought I'd found something until the closer I looked, I found out these are all little chords and clumps too, aren't they? Maybe it's hard for some of you to see that. I didn't actually buy this chart, but I had my camera with me, and the carpet was blue. Anyway, I was in Columbia, South Carolina, and came across this book. Boy, was I excited, because look at what it says here, complete keyboard library. I thought, this is indeed going to have those professional chords that I'm so much wanting to learn. Because truly, it's not hard to do it if somebody just shows you. So I'm going to show you what's in this book, and I want you guys to tell me what your reaction is to this book, if this is the answer for you. Let me know if I'm going too fast. So what's wrong with this book? Too complicated. Way too much. Way too complicated. Most of us would be hard-pressed over a period of months and months to try to remember that many of these chords. Way too complicated. There's something else too weird. Not a single chord in the whole book played the way a professional would play it. Should be a disclaimer. A little asterisk up here should say, no, none of these chords sound good. Buy it and broke disc. Don't waste your $14.99. So what do you think I did? What's my next choice?
Write your own book.
What?
Write your own book.
Write my own book. That's a pretty good answer. Actually, my next choice was kind of like that. It was figure it out for myself. Absolutely. Did you know that's what most professionals did? Figured it out for themselves. They have a good ear. That doesn't mean they have pretty ears. It just means they can hear chords pretty well. And they're trial and error. How many by ear people do we have in here? Isn't there some trial and error? You fiddle around, right? You hunt around for the good sounds. And that's what I did. But I had a different goal in mind, because my goal by now I had already majored in music and became a piano teacher, but I wanted to teach other people how to do this. So as I'm learning how to do it, I'm figuring out how I can teach other people to do it. It's one thing to be able to do it, but it's another thing to be able to teach other people to do it. Because I've found so many professionals that play beautifully that when you say, how do you do that? They say, I really don't know what I'm doing. Because they don't know the names of the chords. They just figured out by trial and error, but they don't know what the chords are called, so they can't read out of any of those books. They can't read the charts I read for the Letterman. Well, let's show you how it worked. The good news for you folks is I've now been teaching this about 35 years, and I've never had anybody who couldn't do it. Isn't that exciting? You don't have to have talent. You don't have to be gifted. You have to be kind of, wanting to. You have to kind of want to, but you don't have to have any gift or talent, because it's all based on me showing you the chord patterns and rhythm patterns, you doing the repetition, and you having a whole new world of music open up to you. And I might add your friends, because when they hear you play, they're going to really enjoy it. So let's talk about how this thing works. How many keys on a full-size piano? 88. Pretty complex. The alphabet only has 26 letters. Well, they're all written down differently. That's why we spend so much time trying to learn how to read these things. But professionals don't deal with 88 keys. They can play them, but they don't deal with them because there aren't 88 different notes on the piano. There's only 7 on the music alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. That's all there are. Every note on the piano is named one of those alphabet letters, black and white, I might say. And when we get to G, it just continues on up the piano. So the piano isn't this 88 note pattern. It's this pattern repeated over and over. Isn't that exciting? As soon as you realize that, and realize that once you learn how to play the pattern in one place on the piano, you can play it everywhere. Isn't that an exciting thing? It's just almost like, hold it, you telling me you just learn it here, you can play it everywhere? Not only yes, but without having to read it everywhere. You just play it. Well, let's show you how we can take these 7 letters and make them into chords. We're going to change them into numbers first, because we want our patterns to be movable. We don't want our patterns to be only able to be played in one spot on the piano, do we? We want to play it everywhere we want to go. So how are chords made? Well, we can't leave the notes in a pile. It doesn't work, does it? So we've got to take our notes of the pattern, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, spread them apart. We take the even numbers and put them up there, because we don't want them touching each other, because touching each other doesn't sound good. So now we've succeeded in taking our 7 notes and have, actually they're every other note now, aren't they? We still have them, it's just that we took 2, 4, and 6 and put up there. But you know what? We got to change number 2, 4, and 6 to different numbers. Otherwise, if we don't, we'll play them right there. If I say play number 2, where are you going to play it? Between 1 and 3. We don't want to play between 1 and 3. We want 2 played above 7. Hold it, this is too complicated. Hold it. Why did I come to this seminar? Now he's telling me that we want to play note number 2 above note number 7. This is so complicated. Now, to make it simple, do you see what we want? We should number 2 a different number. Why would we number number 2 if we want to play 2 keys higher than 7? 9. Those are the numbers you guys are going to see when you read music that's got chords on it. You're going to see 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Now we still only have 7 numbers, but we've succeeded in making them all odd numbers. And I wish they'd have told me this the first day I took music and music theory in college. Students, chords are built using odd numbers from 1 to 13. I wish they'd have told me that. Of course, I only took theory for 2 years, and they never said anything about number 9, 11, and 13. I think they just thought we would realize that we're never going to be able to learn those high numbers anyway. But it's not hard. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, 13. Those are the building blocks of chords, odd numbers. Now, we don't need all 7 of those to start with, do we? How many do we need for the simplest chord?
3.
3 of them. They even call that a triad in college. There's the simplest chord, 1, 3, 5. And since the number 1 note is on G, it's a G chord, right? Here's a G chord. We can move it up to C, C chord, move it up to F, F chord. Now you know what I mean by movable pattern, because we're just using numbers instead of naming the notes. But this doesn't sound good. That's why this sounded like... See, it's just not very full, not very rich, and it's kind of boring. Not only that, the lower you go, the worse it gets. So if we play chords that way, I guess we could just rent out the bottom half of our piano because it doesn't sound good down there anyway. And when I was figuring out these beautiful chords, I was listening to professionals. I wasn't trying to come up with my own sounds. I was trying to come up with their sounds. First thing I realized, they're playing more than 3 notes. 3 notes is not very many. And there's 1s and 3s and 5s all the way up the piano, so you can play how many ever you want. But there's a problem note that makes it sound so bad down low, and that happens to be the number 3 note. Doesn't sound good played, you know, along with the number 1 note lower on the keyboard. Sound great? Sounds horrible. Well, nobody ever read that in a book. Any of you guys ever read that in a book, that the number 3 note doesn't sound good next to the number 1 note? No. That's because I guess the people writing the books about playing by chord just have you play them up in the middle of the piano and hope you won't notice that you wish you could play a much richer sound. So here's the pattern I came up with, folks. Not 3 notes, but 6. Not 1 hand, but 2. With the number 3 note not played in the left hand, but instead played in the what hand? The right hand. See that? So instead of this sound, we have a beautiful sound. We'll show you how that works. So there's the basic pattern. I've had so many professionals that have seen my course and say, oh, that's the chords I play. That's the way I play. Some of them even are kind of amazed that I was able to figure it out. Because some of them, as I did, took years to do it. You don't just figure this out like on a Friday evening just before, you know, the show starts. This takes years because you want to learn how to play all the chords and you want it to be in a systematic way. So let's show you how that works. I happen to have the pattern on a piece of cardboard. Yes. Because your objective should be to get your hands on that pattern right from the very first moment. Because isn't that what you want to learn how to do? Absolutely. And like our fine typists in here, every time you play this pattern, it gets easier, and eventually it will become easy and automatic. So let's show you, before I put this little chart on the thing, let's show you 1, 3, 5, starting on F. Pretty rotten. Now I'll show you this 6-note pattern, starting on F. Hear the difference? Thick, ugly, non-musical, beautiful, and no matter where you play it, it sounds gorgeous. So let's not learn the other one. So how would you do that? You put your piece of cardboard behind the keys, and there are 6 notes. Here's your 3 left-hand notes. Here are your 3 right-hand notes. And I line up the first little black rectangle with whatever chord I'm learning. And by the way, you can learn any chord with it. It's just we're going to start on the C chord. C is the white key just to the left of the 2 black ones. So you put your fingers on there. The fingers I'm going to use are my little finger, index finger, and thumb of both hands. And here's the numbers of those notes. 1, 5, 1. No 3, right? 1, 5, 1. 3, 5, 1. If I leave my fingers there for just a few seconds, I'm actually learning something. This is practice right now. I'm practicing what it feels like to have my hands in that pattern. And I'll play it again. This could be you. Let my fingers sit there. Take them off. Play it again. Keep your fingers down. Get used to what that feels like. So how much time do you think it would take before I could put my cardboard away and find the pattern all on my own? How long do you think it would take for you? Minutes, hours, days, weeks? Minutes. Brave people that would actually say the word minutes out loud. Because the older we get, some of you young people don't understand this, but we older people become very cautious as we get older because we don't want our children and grandchildren saying, "You said," I said, "You said you could do this." So we always say, "We'll see." Am I right? We'll see. Well, minutes is correct. We probably had some of you guys that were a little more negative, didn't we? Some were thinking hours. It should be hours, it should be days, it should be months. Because is it fair that in minutes you could learn how to play the basic professional chord pattern that they're all using out there? Is that fair? Yep. Because I spent the time. Why should you? So, without the chart, 1, 5, 1, this is very comfortable. This is not something weird. Skip a key, and the top note. Sounds great even way down here. No matter where you play it. Exciting? Well, if you think that's exciting, after that 3-4 minutes, you don't have to use this because you don't want to depend on it. You don't want to go to a party like this, am I right? You don't want to do that. You want to have it in your hands and in your head. Eventually, it'll just be in your hands, meaning you won't have to think. You like that idea? I can tell by looking at some of your faces that thinking has not been a strong thing. With me either. I didn't want to have to think. I wanted to just play. They do call it playing the piano, am I right? They don't call it working the piano. Well, here's how the magic happens. Once you learn this, are we talking about days? Minutes. Once you learn this pattern can play not one, but several chords. All I gotta do is keep my fingers on the white keys and move the pattern around. C chord, F chord, G chord, E minor, A minor, D minor, all identical. Now the professionals know all those chords are identical, but they're not telling anybody. You ever been to a concert with like Elton John or Peter Negro or Barry Manilow, and did any of them ever stand up, after a song and say, by the way, a lot of those chords are really easy. A lot of them are just identical. They don't ever say that. So you sit there in the audience going, I'd give anything to play like that. And they're up there doing stuff that's very easy for them. But we're admiring them because we're relating to how hard it would be to do that the way we learned. And we're just thinking, oh, boy, wouldn't it be great? 6 chords. Did you guys hear me say minor? 3 of those? Let's talk about major and minor. Major and minor in music means exactly the same thing as it does in regular life. So if I said I got a major problem, what's a substitute word? I got a what?
Big.
Big one. So when you hear the term major, a major chord in music, or a minor key or a minor chord, it just means big and little. Who knew? And we're going to talk about big and little. Here's our little simplest pattern, and we're going to measure how far it is between the 1 and the 3. If it's a bigger space, it's a major chord. If it's a smaller space, it's going to be a minor chord. So between the 1 and the 3, there's 3 keys. Does that all make sense to everybody? Can you see that? This is a major chord because, believe it or not, that's a bigger space than what you're going to see now, because we're going to move the chord down to A, and now there's how many keys between the 1 and the 3? Just 2 keys. Isn't that interesting? Now, I don't want you to think that you're going to have to learn how to play this way and constantly count how many keys there are between the 1 and the 3. But it's nice to know, because that's how you actually tell whether or not you're playing a major chord or a minor chord. On the music, they'll tell you whether to play a major chord or a minor chord. For a major chord, they put a capital letter. For a minor chord, isn't that easy? You get so used to that, as soon as you see the little M, you say, oh, A minor. But then you need a simple way to know how to play it. Well, we start with the basic pattern. We know what the basic pattern is because this is where you start. You don't have to start with a new pattern. And this is a major chord. Can you guys see between the 2 blue notes how many keys? 3. Major chord, right? So when you play that 6-note chord, it's the space between your thumbs is where you would look to see whether it was major or minor. Let's look at that on the keyboard. I'll play a chord. Count the keys between my thumbs and tell me major or minor. Major. You guys with me? How many of you guys remember elementary school when you were sitting next to Earlene, and every time the teacher asked a question, she went, I know. Did you sit by her? Some of you? And didn't you realize that it really took a lot of pressure off you because she would never call on you with Earlene acting like a fool next to you? Have you noticed that? Well, some of us got used to that, so when the teacher asks a question, you basically sit there going, Earlene's going to answer that one. How many keys was it between my thumbs? 3. What kind of chord? Major. Because 3, you'll want to write this down. 3 is bigger than 2. I'm joking. Don't write that down. Okay. Let's try this chord. Count the keys between my thumbs. 2, so it's a what? Minor. Now, once you've gotten used to the chord, I know that if I play my pattern starting on A, I don't have to count the keys between my thumbs anymore, because once you've counted it once, I know that it's going to come out A minor without me doing a thing. And I know that if I start on C, because I counted them once, I'll know that if I start a chord on C, it's going to come out C what? C major, which would be shown as just a capital letter on the music. So that's kind of how you tell, because they're always going to tell you on the music which it is, major or minor. So you're ready to play! Yep. Oh, I always want to play My Funny Valentine, but there's already a hitch. There's a catch to it because it starts with C minor and my pattern plays C major. Oh well, forget it. I guess I'll just go home and watch television, which is what most of us think to do. But you know what? Professionals know a very simple way to make a major chord into a minor one. And it doesn't involve thinking. It doesn't involve note names. It doesn't involve sharps and flats. It doesn't involve key signatures. All you have to do to change a C major into a C minor is take your basic pattern and move the right thumb one key lower. You don't even have to know the name of the note. Doesn't that sound terrible for a piano teacher to say those words? You don't even have to know the name of the note. Do you know why you don't have to know the name of the note? Who can tell me? Because you don't need to think about it to move your thumb down one key, do you? Do you know the professionals are never thinking about the notes any more than you typists are thinking about the letters? See? All you do is think about a pattern that types a letter, types a word. When I type the word the, here's what I think of. There it was. That's the. Just a little, I've typed that so many times, but I could type it in my sleep, probably. So we're going to show you how to make this C major chord into a C minor chord. Here's C major, 3 keys between my thumbs. So to make a C minor, all I need to do is move this thumb 1 key to the left. Because it's going to be a black key, I'm going to slide in a bit. That's it. So C major, slide in, C minor, C major, C minor. That's it right there. Notice I'm not naming the keys because we're not naming keys. Did I name all these keys? I didn't, did I? We're not doing keys, we're doing patterns. And then we're doing little teeny simple rules to make the chords different. Any major chord can be made a minor chord by moving your right thumb 1 key lower. See that? Here's an A flat chord. Even though it's hard to tell, that's a major chord, isn't it? 2 white keys and 1 black. To make it minor, interesting, isn't it? Same rule. So all of a sudden you learn a whole bunch of chords with one simple rule. So now I want you to imagine you're home and you're learning this professional chord system, and you're learning how to make a major chord minor, and so that you watch my video and I say, okay, slide your hand in and move your right thumb 1 key lower. How many months would that take? Is that close to instantaneous learning? Seriously? Now, I'm not saying that it would be easy and automatic yet, but I am saying that every time you go like this, major, every time you do that, it gets easier and easier. And pretty soon it does become automatic because you associate the name C minor with doing this. Then you can play My Funny Valentine. My Funny Valentine, sweet comic Valentine. Even though I played 4 kinds of minor chords, you'll have to come up afterwards to ask me about that. I don't want to confuse you. But that's simple as that. Every major chord can be made into a minor chord by moving your right thumb 1 key lower. And even though it sounds stupid, I'm going to say it. You can do that already, can't you? Look, Ralph! I can do it! That's how hard it is. It really is that easy.
But don't you play sharps and flats with other fingers, not just your thumb? Not just your right thumb?
Ask that slower. I've had a hard
Don't you play
life.
sharps and flats
Yes.
with more than just your right thumb?
Sharps and flats? Oh, yeah. Depends on what you're playing. For
That's
instance,
what
if I
I'm saying,
play...
like, how can you...
Well, let me show you that. If I play an A flat chord, look at this. See? My right thumb's the only one on a white key. See? A flat chord. If I'm going to play that minor, what? See? Does that answer the question? So it's all the same wherever you are, but you just play the same pattern and here and here and here. You get used to those black keys. But that's what you do. Right thumb goes down. Now you guys tell me the next answer. If I'm playing a minor chord, 2 keys between my thumbs, and I want to make it into a major chord, because the music says play a major chord, what do I do? 1 to the right. So that whole major minor thing, it's kind of interesting, because major is kind of a happy sound, isn't it? Right? You know? Major chord. Minor chord, more serious. See? More serious. So what would you think Jingle Bells would be, major or minor? Major. And indeed, look at that. Who would have known? Major chord, 3 keys between the 1 and the 3. I wonder what Jingle Bells would sound like minor. Who would have thought that just by making 2 keys between the 1 and the 3, all of a sudden we have a completely different song, don't we? Did that sound like Jingle Bells to you guys? No, not at all. And yet every note was the same except the number 3 note was down 1 key. All the great composers knew all these things. Now people just learn how to play the piano and don't know what's going on. It's kind of sad, isn't it? With this course, you will become a genius and understand what's going on with the piano, which is pretty exciting. Now let's show you another kind of a chord we've talked about, major and minor. Now let's add one more odd number to our simplest chord. Now we've got 1, 3, 5, 7, and we would call this a what kind of chord? Seventh chord. A 7th chord. Now we wouldn't say C7th necessarily, but we call it a 7th chord. We call it like C7 or G7 or whatever, and on the music they just put a number 7 there, which makes it very easy. There's no secret, you see, when you play according to patterns. They're going to flat out tell you, we want to add a 7 to this chord. And with my course, that's so easy to do because we once again start with the basic 6-note pattern. And instead of having a completely different pattern, once again, we're going to just change one note. The left thumb is going to go down 2 keys. If you're fortunate enough to, when you bought a piano here at Hall Piano, ask them that you'd like the one with the option of the little finger pointing at which key to play. They don't sell those, but it's kind of fun to look. So my left thumb's going to go down 2 keys. Does that look like 2 or 1? 2. It is 2, because we have to count the black one and the white one. But the actual doing is just drag your thumb across that little crack. Boy, this is too easy. How many notes am I changing? Only 1. That's what makes it easy to learn. So let's show you changing a G chord into a G7. Here's the basic G chord. Make that into G7. All I have to do is that, which once again you know is a 2-second proposition. Then you just get used to that. After a while, every time you see the number 7, you go like this. Seriously. You get totally used to it. And it becomes automatic. And of course the G7 chord sounds beautiful as opposed to the G7 chord in this book, which sounds like this. Not so beautiful. So here's G, here's G7. And the fun thing about it is, every 7th chord can be played by moving your left thumb down 2 keys. So you're not learning a whole bunch of, I hate to do this to you, but okay. Isn't it great not to have to deal with that at all? So far we've talked about all of these. 1. And we've talked about both of these. That's all. So here's a G and a G7. Here's a C. This is a little different because when I go down 2 keys, my left thumb will end up on what? Black or white key? Black. So I'm going to slide in so I can reach it. You don't want to twist your wrist. Just slide in. C7. C chord, C7. Imagine how much practice you could do in 10 seconds. Wouldn't that be funny if you told your wife that you're going to go practice the piano for 10 seconds? Because in traditional piano, you won't even know where your book is in 10 seconds. In 10 seconds, you can do this about 15 times. And then every time you get used to it, pretty soon, C7, your thumb's on that black key. Everything else is the same. There's my C7, right? So all these little things, you'd be surprised how many piano teachers are with us today? How many aren't with it today? You'd be surprised how many piano teachers, and I know, can't play Happy Birthday to You without their music. 3 of those teachers in Lansing, Michigan bought my course, and after it was so interesting to hear them talk. She says, it's so embarrassing being a piano teacher and having people ask you to play Happy Birthday to You and you don't know how to do it. She says, never again. And all 3 of them bought this course. They wanted to be masters of the keyboard instead of victims of not being able to play without their music. So anyway, there we have our 1, 3, 5, 7, and we have how to play majors and minors. Now let's look at a piece of music that uses those 3 kinds of chords. For major chords, remember I said they just have a capital letter, right? For minor chords, little m, 7th chord, number 7. So here's the melody. That's the melody above the words. It's actually below the words too, but then you have to play that other stuff. But instead, I'll just play my G chord, E minor chord, C chord, D7. Put them both together. Doesn't that sound great? And the only notes I had to pay any attention to were just the melody notes. All the rest of the notes were in my patterns. That's why it's so easy to do, because I'm not having to read all the rest of that stuff. By the way, what I played was better than what's written down, because what's written down is much more empty sounding. Well, we could go on and on and on, but I just want to get on quickly to our rhythm patterns, because that's a fun thing. But I'm just going to remind you about our last three odd numbers. What were they again? 9, 11, and 13, right? So, presto chango. So the reason I wanted to remind you of those, even though we're not going to take the time to show you how to do those chords, they're all still just moving one note or two. That's all. Basic pattern, moving one or two notes, you can play all the chords. But I did want to show you what you'll see on music. You'll see the number 9. By the way, there's also a 7 in those chords. And once you get to the number 7, there's always a 7. On the 9 chord, there's a 7. On the 11 chord, there's a 7. And on the 13 chord, there's a 7. See, they don't put all the numbers, do they? They just put the highest one. They think you'll figure out the rest. Well, that's how simple that is. Oh, just for fun, shall I show you a 13th chord? Yes. I just got to do that because it's unbelievably easy. We're going to start with our basic 6-note pattern. I'm going to do it on G. Two things I'm going to do. I'm going to put a 7 in it because I told you that all of the numbers 7 and higher have a 7 in them. And to get our 13, instead of me counting, you will just know that if we take our normal note here that we're playing in the middle of our right hand and go up 2 keys with it, we've got a 13. And indeed it is a 13. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, but you'll never have to count. Is that going to be hard? No, here's how hard it is. 7, 13. Now, the exciting thing is that you name the letter, and I can instantly play a 13th chord there because they're all exactly the same and feel the same. For instance, D flat 13, B flat, E 13, E 13, A flat 13, C 13, D 13. They're all the same. All I did was this. Clunk. Clunk. Who would think it could be so easy? It's easy because it's simple, and what makes it easy is repetition. But let's show you some rhythm patterns. Got to do some rhythm patterns. Before we get on to those, I'm going to show you a little review statement using just a couple of patterns and a few simple rules. You will be able to play virtually any chord you'll find in popular music today. Now, how many of you have been involved with chords enough to where you've seen some really hard chords? Anybody? You've seen some pretty tough ones? Can you name a tough chord? Can you think?
No.
Can you name one, Brett, a pretty complex?
Like a B flat 13 flat 9.
Yeah. The 13, of course, is going to be this. The flat 9 is going to be your right thumb down a key. In other words, once you know the patterns, they're not that complex. They're not really hard to play. If I do, for instance, let me just show you this quickly. I'm going to play you just a couple of chords. Basic pattern, C chord, right? Basic pattern, C minor 7. I just move ahead because I'm going to go minor and 7. B minor 7 with a flat 5. C minor 9. A flat major 7. Now, why are they so easy for me? Not because I'm a genius, but just because they're just little teeny variations of the basic pattern. So now let's talk about our rhythm patterns. Rhythms, lots of rhythms, but usually the books like this teach you no rhythms. You just clunk the chord down and sit on it, which is why they sound kind of boring. I'm going to show you just 4. One pattern is to take the 6 notes and play them one note at a time. Second one is a repeated right hand, kind of like a guitar strumming.
Yes, you were playing that piece a minute ago, and
I was doing
the rhythm pattern, right?
Yes,
that's
I
how
was.
You get that.
That's right. I was kind of spreading the notes out. Very observant, thank you, sir.
Sure, I understand.
Yeah, which incidentally is very easy. It's easier to do that than play them all at once. But then they flow, don't they?
Right.
There's a flow to it instead of kind of a dead spot. Third thing I'm going to do is country rhythm. It's actually kind of oompa, oompa, oompa rhythm, but I call it a country rhythm. You could also do polkas and a million other songs. The fourth one I'm going to do is a rolling right hand rhythm, kind of like Beethoven did on Moonlight Sonata. This course has another 10 or 15 additional rhythms, but we're not going to take time today to show them to you. So we'll start with the second song in this course. It's called Today. And I'm going to play the notes of the rhythm pattern one at a time, and I'm going to sing the melody. Today the blossoms still cling to the vine. I'll taste your strawberries, I'll drink your sweet wine. A million tomorrows will all pass away ere I forget all the joy that is mine today. So if you went to a party or get together and you played the piano like that and a friend of yours sang, what would people think of your piano playing? Maybe think it was A-OK. You can all learn how to do what I just showed you from 2 to 4 weeks.
And you were playing both hands one at a time.
Yeah. So bum, 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 going from one to the other. Absolutely. And nothing different. It sounded like I was doing all this fancy stuff. 2 to 4 weeks. What do you think? Now, those of you who already played piano quite well would be excited to be able to sound like that without ever having to have read any notes. Not only that, since there's 7 chords in that song, you could also play another 1,000 other songs. There are so many songs that only use 4 or 3 chords. So what's interesting is when you learn to play by pattern, you're actually learning all the songs at once. Because when you learn a G chord, every time you see a G chord, you already know it. So you see what I'm saying by learning them all at once? That's why the professionals that asked me to play for the Letterman didn't worry about the fact there wasn't time to play each song only one time, because they figured if you know the patterns, you don't even need to play it once, because you already know all the answers. Pretty exciting. Now, once you learn to play those patterns, and you get used to it, not just playing the accompaniment patterns, sing one at a time, they get easier and easier, and after just a few more days, it will become very easy. And then my course has 12 lessons that teach you how to add the melody, if you don't want to play for somebody to sing. My course teaches you to play the piano 2 ways, with the melody, which is more normal, and a sing-along way, which is fun, fun, fun. Any guitar players in our group today? Guitar players, anyone? Do you ever play and people sing with you while you strum along? Same thing, isn't it? And do they ever say, play the melody, I don't want to sing with strumming? They never say that? Why? Why is it that piano players don't ever do that? It's the same thing, see? But professional piano players do it because they know how neat it is, see? Okay, now, let's show you with the melody. My melody is my top note. So my top note to the right was a melody. All the rest of those notes, guaranteed, were the notes of the chords. I did not add any notes. I didn't change any notes. They were all just the notes of the chord patterns. But I did a couple of little tricks. Did you guys notice me doing some little tricks? Because I filled in when my hands were too far apart. Instead of leaving this big empty space, I picked up these 2 notes with the left hand. And you would think that would take 5 years to learn how to do that, except when you don't have to hunt for the notes, you don't have to read the notes, and all you have to do is go to your thumb, skip a key, and skip a key. That does not take very many years. Because you know where the notes are. Very exciting. So remember, you're learning how to play just the chords for sing-alongs, the chords and the melody when you want to play the whole thing without anybody singing. Okay, now let's do our repeated right hand. Everything together. Repeat, repeat, repeat. Pretty simple, right? Would you say hard or easy? Pretty easy, isn't it? It really is. Well, you learn this on a song called By the Time I Get to Phoenix. Watch my right hand play 4 times for each pattern. By the time I get to Phoenix, she'll be rising. She'll find the note I left hanging on the door. She'll laugh when she reads the note that says I'm leaving. Now, if you heard a professional record, they'd also get some violin players and some singers to go ooh and ah, and they'd get a bass player, and then they'd hire Glenn Campbell to sing it.
Now, how do you know to do that 4 times? Why? I mean, that's...
Well, I teach you that. That's one of the rhythm patterns. And of course on the music, it's going to give you an indication, which I show you, that you don't just guess wildly. But it gives you all these tools so that you can hear songs and say, oh, try this rhythm pattern. Oh, that one works really
But on
well.
a piece of music,
Yeah, it won't say that rhythm pattern. But I show you how to tell what would be an appropriate time to use it. But it will tell you something that lets you know there needs to be 4 of something. Now here's our country rhythm. Oh, this is a fun sing-along rhythm. You can get people. You play this way, you're going to have all kinds of people come and sing with you. Almost heaven, West Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountain, Shenandoah River. Pretty complicated, huh? We're so used to thinking things are complicated that right now, if I were you, I'd look at that and say, oh yeah, maybe in 10 years. No, I didn't want people to have to take 10 years to learn how to do that. So what we do is, of course, we're using the same 6 notes, and our left hand is going like this. Outside 2 notes, middle note. Now you'll already have these notes in your hand because you'll be used to this pattern. Then you just play your right hand in between lightly, and my course teaches you exactly how to do that. First, you'll have to pause when you move to the new pattern. You'll have to pause, but it's more important to pause and get it right than hurry and get it wrong, because the only kind of repetition that's going to make it easy and automatic is what kind of repetition? Perfectly done repetition. The key to it is to do it slow enough to do it right. You do it right 5 times, you're creating this wonderful ability to play. Well, how many songs can you play using that rhythm pattern? Seriously, tens of thousands. So all of a sudden you have this rhythm pattern. Somebody go to a party a year from now, somebody says, can you play Tie a Yellow Ribbon Round the Old Oak Tree? And you instead of saying, oh, I've heard of that song, I can order the music. But you see, they don't want to hear that. Does anybody want to hear I can order the music at a party? No, because what if somebody, moves away or something, or forgets where they were at the party? So you say, oh, I can play that. I'm coming home after my time. I've got to know what isn't right. See, that's the same thing. Everybody will be stomping the floor, clapping their hands, slapping their thighs, and somebody's going to go, ah, something like that. And everybody will be having fun, and they will blame you for their fun. But there's one drawback. Guess who has to stay till the end of the get-together? You do. See? You get a lot of compliments. People say, I don't know how you can do that without music. Now, what are you going to say when they say that to you? You're going to look up in the air, kind of shake your head back and forth and say, it's a gift. Then, of course, you can tell them the truth after that. And you say, well, I got my patterns. But they'll still think you're a genius. Here's our rolling right hand. See how I hit the left hand along with the rolling right hand? And you guys remember that Beethoven Moonlight Sonata, right? Interesting. Who knew that it was that simple? But it sounds so nice because something's happening. You learned this rhythm pattern on a song called Color My World, a group called Chicago. As time goes on, I realize just what you mean to me. And now that you're near, promise your love that I'm waiting to share. Aren't those gorgeous chords? And they're all as simple as the ones I've shown you. I actually played a 9th chord. I know you wouldn't have known I did that, but all I had to do is move one note and then move it back down for a regular chord. Well, that's the way this course works. And it's amazing simply because it's systematic. You don't have to learn hundreds and hundreds of different chords. All you do is learn a couple of simple patterns. You can play all those chords. I want to just show you a little summary thing and then play a little teeny short video for you to see if maybe this is something you guys would like to change your life by doing. Professional chord system works for teens and adults of any ability level, and I think you guys all fit into that, don't you? I do, I'm any. It's exciting and rewarding for an experienced player, and we have a lot of experienced players with us today, but we've got people who've never played the piano. Easy enough for a true beginner. It truly is. I had a couple. They were both in their 60s who bought this course. She was a piano teacher. She was retiring. She was 62. He had never played a note. Now, if there are any piano teachers in here, you know that it's not easy to teach your husband or wife how to play the piano if you're the teacher, because there's this kind of dynamic that's a little weird. Leave me alone. And I'm not trying to say something straight, you know what I mean? It just didn't work so hot. It's even sometimes a little hard to teach your own children how to play the piano because you're their dad. But anyway, this piano teacher, they bought the course. He'd never played the piano. Now they go to parties and get-togethers and play piano duets. Can you believe that? So in their retirement years, instead of she's music, he's newspaper, their music. Can you imagine sharing something? Can you imagine him learning to play that well to where the piano teacher lady would do duets with him? It's amazing. Here's the most amazing part. It was easier for him to learn than it was her. Because he didn't know anything. So when I said, you know, put your fingers here, clunk. By the way, they didn't learn it with me. He stuck this on the keys and put his fingers there. She was probably thinking too much. Or kind of saying, now let's see what's actually happening here. He didn't know what was happening. Just do this? Yeah. So it's pretty exciting. Well, let's show you this little video. I've got to press a couple of buttons here. The question you should have, folks, if you're thinking about getting involved in this course, the question should be, number one, can I do it? Could I do it? I don't want this to be a 90% failure rate. I want it to be all of you could do it. Second question, would I have fun? It's great to add an element of true enjoyment to your life. And not something that's fun one little day, but something that you can return to the piano 10 minutes a day for the rest of your life, and every time you sit down and make those gorgeous sounds, you just feel a sense of kind of peace and lack of stress. You know what I mean? Don't those of you guys who play the piano and enjoy it, isn't that kind of a stress reliever? Don't you just sometimes do it, that was great. Even 5 minutes doing it. I love to do it. That's why my favorite place to be is a piano store. Probably Brett will tell you that I walk around playing all the pianos in here, so because I can't keep myself from doing it. So let's take a look at this little video and see if this is indeed something that would answer those two questions for you. Could I do it? And let's see if this is right. Yes. Could I do it? And would I have fun? Maybe this video will answer those questions for you.
Once I started playing, I couldn't stop. I had to rip myself away from the piano.
Well, I've only been working with it for like a few months, and my friends are really impressed when they can see how well I can play.
One of the things that really struck me, it was the first time I attended a seminar, and I heard a young man who'd only been doing the system for about 7 or 8 weeks play for his sister to sing a very difficult song with many chord changes and wonderful sounds. And I was just amazed.
What I loved about this program was that everything worked, everything went together. I would be really comfortable learning from this package. I couldn't imagine anything better to learn from.
When I just barely started learning this chord system, I'd only been playing it for a couple of months, and I was in this talent show, and I played the piano and sang, and everybody thought it was so wonderful. I got standing ovations, everyone thought it was great. And the funny thing is nobody knew that I had only been playing the piano for a couple of months. You know where I
I had a few lessons. I didn't like to go. I hated to practice. I never stuck with it. Later, as I was introduced to the professional chord system, that is the whole way I learned to play the piano. That was my formal training. And that has allowed me to fulfill my dreams. Now I have a recording studio. I produce commercials for radio and TV. I write and produce original music. I play in a band as a keyboard player. It's a great system. If you want to learn how to play piano, this is the way to do it.
Before this system, but after playing this system, within a few weeks I could play the kind of songs I like to play. And I like to play the more modern, upbeat songs, and I just have a lot of fun with it.
There was a time when I thought that I would never find the one.
its chord system. I was a non-piano player. When I got the system, after about a month, I was playing music that my friends, family, everybody was just loving.
It's so step by step, it's so simple, and so easy to understand that anybody, I guarantee, anybody can learn how to do it.
This is real music education at its best.
I think this is one of the greatest bargains on the planet.
Anyone of every age could learn and benefit from this program. Even my own parents, who were in the early 80s, could have a ball with this.
This professional chord system is the best money I have spent.
It is easy, it is fast to learn, it is inexpensive, and it is a surefire thing.
Well, you guys have been great. I want you to applaud yourselves for being a great audience. And I know I kind of put you through a lot. By the way, I got the course available in a self-instructional format. That's great. I'll tell you why. You can do it at your own convenience, in your own home. Is that good? At your own pace. You like that? You can review the lessons over and over at no additional charge. Nobody will get mad at you and say, weren't you paying attention? You will not get hit with a ruler. And they have a little fun there. You'd be surprised how many people told me their piano teacher hit their hands with a ruler, which I think is great motivation. Makes you want to come back for more, doesn't it? But being self-instructional, there is an advantage because you really can do it at your own pace, at your own convenience, and you can watch little parts of the lesson over and over. Sometimes we just need to see something more than once. Am I right? Oh, if I could just see that again. Well, I guess I got next week. I'll go back to my teacher next week. Now, if you've never played, this is a wonderful way to start because you can learn how to play the piano right from the beginning quickly and sound good. So you won't get discouraged. You won't be one of those 90% type people. The lessons are 72 lessons, 12 of them on adding the melody, and they're all on DVD. There are 4 DVDs. And these are not little short DVDs. There's almost 9 hours of instruction. One guy told me he learned more from just one of these 72 lessons than he did 2 years of college music theory. Amazing. He was a music major. The instruction is all on the video because we want you to be able to see how to do it, not just read how to do it. Somebody told me that hearing about something 100 times is not as good as seeing it once, and I agree that that's the case. So what you do is you'll see the lessons on the screen. The top part of the screen will be from the lesson book, which you'll have, 84-page lesson book, and the bottom part of the screen will be me showing you how to do it so that you're connecting the two together. So here's your lesson book, 84-page lesson book. You get that when you watch it. You don't have to have your television and your piano in the same room. Wherever it is fine. And then I'll say turn to page 18 and you'll turn to that. And then you'll see me explaining every item on that page and showing you how it works. Then you take your lesson book to your piano and that's how you do your repetition part. There's also a song book, 13 songs specifically selected to take you in a progressive way from square one to being able to play virtually any chord you'll ever see, including the most complex ones that your friends will wonder how you could possibly know how to do those. And for you, it'll be simple. You can even explain it. 13 songs. These are just kind of standard popular songs that have been standard, over the years. And I played a lot of those tonight. And then, for the benefit of those of you who've never ever played before, and there are a few, the one thing you'll need to learn that other people may already know is where are the 7 different white keys. I suggest you just learn one a day in random order, but you can start in just as quick as anybody else. Then you got your packet of patterns. Everything I showed you today was off of this first one. And then there's a total of 4. But the other 3 are just variations of that one. So there's not a whole lot of difference to them. Since your goal is going to be eventually to play songs that you pick, right? Songs you've always wanted to play. You find the music store. I buy my music a lot of times in books because you can buy a book with 100 or 150 songs for 20 bucks. But then you play the songs you've always wanted to play, and I have instructions on how you can figure that out. If you ever forget a chord, you can look it up on these quick reference guides. The last item is the easiest. It's a listening CD. All 13 songs are recorded on here the way you might hear on the radio. And simply by listening, not thinking, not concentrating, not focusing, not memorizing, simply listening, you learn how the chords sound and how the rhythms sound. And once you get how they sound, it just makes it twice as easy to actually learn them. You'll want to know how they sound anyway. so that you can tell when you make a mistake. You'll say, well, that doesn't sound right. Who's the most important person to know whether you're making a mistake, you or your piano teacher? Yeah, you are. That's right. Because you see, your piano teacher is going to tell you after a week of you playing it wrong. You don't want that. Well, this entire 72-lesson course retails for $399. But you guys made an effort, a big effort, to be here today, and so we sell them at our seminar for only $299. You can save $100. We guarantee it to work. How can we make such a wild guarantee? The only guaranteed piano lessons in the world is because we know that with my help and this package here, indeed you can succeed with this. I've never seen anybody who couldn't do it. But we also offer ongoing help at no additional charge. You can have unlimited toll-free telephone support. Because right here on the bottom of the box is our 800 number. So whenever you have a question, notice I said whenever, you just phone up and say, hey Dave, you're on lesson 6. I don't want to see if I'm thinking right here. Is it true that you said this? And you just ask me about it. If something bothers you, say, now what does it mean when it says such and such? I'm just more than happy to just help you out. So you're not left to your own, unlimited toll-free telephone support. So you get the package here at the seminar today for $299, 30-day unlimited guarantee, 30-day. If you're not happy, if you're not enjoying it, if you're not having fun, since that's what it's about, then you can return it and get your money back. But I don't want you to return it because you didn't try it, or return it because you had a question and you were afraid to phone the 800 number to get the answer. I had one lady bought the course, and 2 years later she phoned and she said, it's funny, she said, I bought your course 2 years ago, and I could just kick myself. Now that's not too good of a... I said, well, what's the problem? She says, the problem is I bought it 2 years ago and put it in my closet, and I didn't start it until a couple of months ago. And she says, I wasted 2 years. It's great. So that's the only thing. Don't put it in your closet. Try it out, find out if it works for you. By the way, if you're on a budget, and it's a little hard to pay the whole $299 because you're just on a little tighter budget, just by paying a couple of extra dollars on each payment, you can buy it in 5 payments of $62, but you take it home with you today. And I also know that this can indeed change your life. It's the missing dimension of piano. It's the one I hunted for all those years of taking piano lessons, but I didn't know where to look, and my teachers didn't know where to look either. By the way, I'm just going to be up front here, and if you want to come up and look at the materials and you want to ask me some questions, I love it when people ask me questions. Usually they say, well, can you play the black keys too? Yeah, all keys. How about augmented chords and diminished chords? Yes. How about this? Yes. How about this? Yes. I just didn't want to give you too much of a deal. Yes, a question, sir.
The brochure, it says 49 keys. My keyboard has 41. Does that make a difference?
I'll bet it has more than 41. Because you're counting the black and white keys? Yeah, black and white. So yours will probably have more like 60 or something. Yeah, so you'll be fine.
Second question.
Yes.
Is that available on VCR?
It isn't. It's DVD, but you can buy DVD players now for like $39 or $29 or something. And it's just so much better than VHS tape. It's easier to find the lessons. You can go directly to a lesson instead of, back. And it just works better. You can put it on pause for as long as you want, whereas a VCR, you put it on pause, the head is spinning on the tape the entire time. So yeah, if you are interested in getting it, just buy yourself a cheap, inexpensive. You go down to Walmart or anywhere, they have them for $39 all the time. In fact, the $39 ones would have cost about $150 about 2 years ago. So that's the thing to do. Folks, I'll answer any questions you have up here. I do want to say one more thing before we finish. There's only one thing I would have left in my mind if I were thinking about getting this today, and that would be, am I just being fooled into buying another one of those products that sounds good, but in reality it's all fake? Have you ever bought anything like that? I think we all have. This course has been taught for the last 10 years at the University of Texas to their students who are becoming piano teachers. If it were a gimmick, if it weren't real, if it were really watered down and fake, they would not be teaching it every semester for the last 10 years at the University of Texas, because they are wanting their piano teachers to be able to teach their students how to play by chord this way, not the little 3-note chords. You guys have been wonderful. We appreciate the guys here at Hall Piano, appreciate Brett and Steve and the whole crowd here. And come on up and ask me some questions. You guys have been wonderful. You want to get the course? Most of you met my wife by the front door, and she would be happy to do you a course. And remember, you'd be ahead to buy it and return it. I don't want you to. Then just think that, well, maybe it won't work. Thank you so much for coming. You guys are good. Thank you.
Celebrating 50 years of noteworthy excellence. Since 1958, Hall Piano Company has proudly served families and businesses across our state, from uprights to grands, sales and repairs to moving. Call today and you'll see just how beautifully a piano fits into the life of your family. View our inventory online or come see and play our tremendous selection of upright and grand pianos. From beginner to concert pianist, we're here for you. Celebrating 50 years, Hall Piano Company.